Adeniji. And with me tonight, I have Sister Moturayo, who is trained and who deals with children. And I have Sister Ekundaya also. Because her profession is sensitive, I'm not going to be mentioning what she does for a living. But they'll be joining me tonight to look at understanding childhood trauma. And you see a lot of adults today behaving in certain ways, or my wife is behaving like this, my husband is behaving like this, my children probably behaving in some certain way, and we actually don't understand why they do the things they do and how we can help them. So I want us to have an open mind tonight. It's not one of the common topics, like 6 things you need to know about marriage, 7 steps you need to take if you're finding a husband. It's not one of them common topics. So I want us to be open-minded and we can learn from our two beautiful sisters tonight. I'm going to start with Sister Moturayo to give us a foundation on it. So it's going to be between Sister Moturayo and Sister Kodra. I'm just going to be listening tonight and with taking notes. Amen. So please, Sister Moturayo, do you want to introduce yourself and then you have the floor? Unmute yourself, please. Thank you.
Apologies. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me tonight. It's wonderful to be here. It's a good opportunity just for us to talk about topics like this and to be able to educate one another. I cannot say that I know it all. I will talk from the perspective of what I know, what I've seen in the young people and children that I work with, and some of the things that we hear from them directly as to, the people that have been through this trauma. And I'll share a little bit of maybe, sometimes what works. So I suppose what research says as well. And then we'll have a healthy discussion around it, and hopefully we can learn from one another and to share our own knowledge as well. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you for coming. Sister Ekundayo.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good evening, ma.
Oh, sorry. Good evening. Basically, as you said, I work in quite a sensitive sort of area, but I'll just give a little snippet into it. So basically, I have a background working within the criminal justice system. Just give me a second, sorry. And I happen to work with quite a lot of young adults and adults as well that have trauma-related behaviors, that express certain behaviors that is related to trauma, that are going through certain things that are giving them trauma while they're there. So exactly like Machaya said, I'm not an expert, but it's just something I've worked with and I can give my insight into it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we want to start. Any one of you? Let's start. How does this start? What do we understand by the word trauma? And when we say children are being traumatized, what does it mean?
I think the best way that I can describe it is any sort of incident, life experiences. I think I'm going to focus on childhood trauma. In childhood, when children are seen and classified as a child, that they may have experienced that is out of the ordinary. So out of the ordinary everyday, the child falls over, or the little things that happens at home and in our environments. So things like there are different types of trauma. For example, the things that we think are very basic are, say, for example, a child is saying, I'm being picked on, but then it moves on from being picked on to being bullied. When a child experiences bullying, it is a form of trauma. There is also trauma in the community as well. So if you think about if there are different sort of sects in the community who are against one another, and the child experiences that violence in the community, there are also like natural disaster. So if we hear about countries, for example, a volcano, those incidents that happen that are unexpected, but that is not a part of the everyday experiences. There is trauma. It can be also sexual abuse, physical abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse in childhood that children experience in their relationship, intimate relationships with parents, with their carers. There are children also, sometimes children fall ill and it's quite a serious illness. So, for example, the children that would be seen at GOSH have experienced quite a serious illness like cancer, for example. It takes a while for them to come back and to heal. Physical, children hurt themselves again. Children who have had to move from, so if we see our unaccompanied minors, so unaccompanied asylum-seeking children who have left their homes, their families due to, a lack of safety in their home country or war, and they've left their family, they experience trauma on that journey, which is not the everyday, I'm just going to get on the plane, I'm going to get here. So some of them go in a dinghy, in a boat, like we hear every day. And those experiences are quite traumatic for them. Terror as well, when terrorism happens in a country, often, children, young people, and even adults experience trauma from that. Grief as well is one of the big ones, the loss of a parent, the loss of a carer, quite earlier on in childhood can go on to
even
affect
divorce. I believe that's one of them as well.
Children, into their adulthood. Domestic abuse, oftentimes when there is something about domestic abuse that I'd like to mention, oftentimes parents will say to us, oh, my child was sleeping when it happened. He would never hit my children, or she would never hit my children. But the mere fact that that child knows that violence or abuse is happening in parental relationship can be quite traumatic. Sometimes children can't talk about it, but when you dig in deeper, they will often come up and talk to you about it. So those are, I can't mention all of the things that can cause trauma, but those are the different types of trauma that a child can experience and that can then affect them in childhood and into adulthood as well.
Do we say, especially because we are Africans or children generally, like, what's the big deal? Why can't you handle it? If I'm fighting with my husband, it's not your business. Try and overlook it. If there is chaos in the community, why should it affect you? Can we play with words like that around children?
I think even that's quite traumatic. Even, I absolutely will be, it makes me really sad when I hear things like that. And you are right, it does happen. People do say things like that to their children. The one that I heard recently was, men don't cry. And I thought, what?
Yeah. It's like, that's a common one.
Yeah, like the saying to a child, man up.
Man up,
no, is a child, is a boy. Allow him to be a boy. But men also cry. We all have emotions. And our emotions are equally valid. And there's a thing about, mental health as well. Somebody has experienced quite a traumatic experience, like, it's happened to people before. So I'm going to say in Yoruba, like, and they managed it well.
Just bottle it up. It's no big deal. Just let it go.
Yeah. And just being quite flippant.
Does it ever go away when you just like use those words? Does it go away?
One thing I would say that I'm not gonna redefine trauma, because I think Mature has done an amazing job defining it, especially in kids. But I think because I tend to deal with full-grown adults when this started presenting in different ways. And it's funny, I think the saying that hurt people is very important in this. Like, someone that is hurt, but some of them don't even know why they're hurt. Some of them can't really get to the bottom of why they're hurt. Some of them are just going through life in different ways. So some will just end up smoking, some will end up displaying, they don't actually know what is wrong with them. But
you're just trying to suppress all this feelings.
Don't they? Yeah.
They're hurt and they're willing to the extent, like, when you sit down with some people and you try to, like, but why would you do that? But why? They can't even get to it. It's just, that's life. That's, everyone has to deal with it. So because they're hurt, they feel like they can hurt other people, and they feel like other people can also deal with it, because that's life.
So what are the signs where we to notice, signs we can pick up to see if a child is being traumatized? Or probably maybe, for instance, they've been to school, we've been very good with them as parents, but we don't know, maybe they've seen traumatized situations probably on TV or in school or at a minder's place, So what are the signs to look out for to be able to easily identify a child that has been traumatized, either by a single experience or a continuous one?
I think for me, I think if it's a child start withdrawing all of a sudden, if a child all of a sudden that was free doing certain things, but all of a sudden they're a bit conscious about it, or they're not free to talk about certain things, they're withdrawing, they're isolating from certain things, from their peers, from yourself, from family members, then you need to dig a bit deeper into it. Or for example, a child that loves to go to school all of a sudden is saying, I really don't feel like going to school, mom. Then
but then good thing you mentioned this thing about school.
Yeah.
You know, when a child says they don't want to go to school, we just snap it off. We don't actually think maybe the child has a valid reason. My friend, go to school. Get ready. Just go to school. We don't actually, could there be a reason, you know, why this child doesn't want to go to school? Is it an African thing? I don't understand it. Or is it that we just think the child doesn't want to go to school? Or are we ignorant?
Do you want to go?
I think myself, I use myself as an example. So growing up, mental health was never a thing. Trauma was never a thing. When somebody tells you off, you take it and you get on with it. You're never to question your parents. You don't have an opinion. You're just told what to do and you do it. I don't want to go to school today. I don't like going to school. Why are you telling me you don't like going to school? You are going to school. You are going to become a doctor. Doctors, you know, and it's like we dismiss the feelings of our children. We don't explore. We don't. Sometimes, I can't say for everyone, but sometimes we don't take a pause a little bit and unpick what they're saying. Like, just ask questions. Allow the most important thing, I think, even for me as a parent, I'm learning it as well, is that relationship between yourself and your child. You know, like Kudra said, if you have a relationship with your child and they say something to you and you notice something different about them, you're thinking, what's going on there? Even if they don't tell you, as a parent, you're picking these things up and asking questions. And even if they say, oh, I don't want to go to school today, oh, tell me about that. What happened yesterday? Why do you feel like that? Can I do anything to make it feel better? And they will open up about what's going on. For example, some children, oftentimes when children are abused, I'm talking about sexual abuse now, it takes years for it to come out sometimes, especially if they don't have a relationship with their parents, because they're made to feel like they did something wrong. So the abuser or the perpetrator, they would often tell them, oh, you wanted it, or you wore this, or, you know, you were somewhere where you shouldn't have been, your parents brought you to me. Don't tell them, because if you tell mommy or daddy, this is going to happen. There's the fear factor of I can't talk to anybody about it. But if you have such a good relationship with your child, and God help us all, they, no matter what anybody says to them, they will say, whatever happens, or whether I mess up, whether it's my fault, I'm going to tell my mom.
Talk to my mom or talk to my dad.
Yeah. And then at that point in childhood, you have the opportunity to address it. And the next thing then is to acknowledge, my child has said this to me. I've acknowledged that this person has made you feel this has happened. You know, and we can have a dialogue about that. And obviously, we're not mental health trained, but we can start that conversation with them. And it's okay not to feel okay and to ask for support with dealing with that. And I think that's where the difficulty is. But yeah, those are some of the things we could.
Yeah, I think within the Black community, I'm not just going to say Africans right now, within the Black community, that's a big, major issue. For us to be truly vulnerable, to just be vulnerable, be it man, be it woman, it's such a privilege that we see it as a privilege that we don't have. You can't afford to be weak. You can't afford to let other people know your weakness. You can't afford to let other people know things that will get to you. And I just feel like we keep pushing and pushing, trying to survive that. That's why you have a lot of people committing suicide now. You have a lot of men doing self-harming, a lot of women doing self-harming and stuff. And it's something that we need to, I personally speak to Maitreya a lot about the need to raise mental health within the Black community. We
Mm.
need to talk to each other more. We need to. There's certain things that our parents will say, "Oh, that's how we live and we survived." And I don't think it's okay for us to just continue living in that way. We need to start having safe places to have conversation, even if it's not within your family. Find a safe place to have this sort of conversations.
Mhm.
That you, yeah.
Thank you very much. Because of our time, we're going to move on to another question. We've talked about signs. So if you
Yeah.
know your child, then you'll be able to notice signs. For instance, you know your child is very chatty. Suddenly they don't want to have a conversation, or they just want to go to their room and lock up, and you'll be like, well, what's going on? Well, you don't want to watch TV? No, mom, I'm all right. You don't want to eat your dinner? I'm full. It's okay. That's your problem. That's your business. If you don't want to eat, go to bed. And then the child does that the first day, the second day, the third day. She'll be like, hey, what's going on? Pause. And then evaluate. You should not overlook. So we're going to round that up there. Now, what are the signs to identify trauma in adults? People who've been traumatized when they were children in their childhood, but you can see a replay in their adult life. You can see that they've not really grown up or grown out of the traumatized situations they have. Are there signs to look at for that?
For me, I think it's how the problem solving, how they problem solve situations, when issues come in their regular life, how they solve it, how they talk to people, their relationships, how they see relationships. So some people just use people as a cushion to sort of, you know. And then some people that were abused or saw their parents being abused will sometimes, unfortunately, even though as a child they affected them, some of them will, as a man, will turn into their abuser sometimes. As a female, will potentially look for someone that did exactly like that to their mom. So you see a lot of females that came from,
and then it becomes a repeat cycle.
Yeah, definitely. I think, some areas that really are quite significant for me, or that I see a lot of, is in their emotions, managing their emotions, relationships and behavior. And in terms of their emotions, managing their emotions is difficulties managing or recognizing other people's emotions. So you would have partners who go into a relationship and they say, I was quite upset yesterday when you did this. And it's like, well, I don't know why you're upset. I don't know why you should be upset. So they can't acknowledge the feelings of other people. Poor emotional regulation, so like dysregulation completely. Like something happens, they go from a 0 to 100, and they can't see themselves doing that. They just see themselves quickly just going. So in terms of even the relationships around them, they can't keep those relationships. Poor attachment. So they get into a relationship, they get really upset. They can't have like a positive or good relationship, a stable home life, because they're not used to that. So they're looking, like Kudra said, they're looking to repeat that cycle. We see that a lot in parenting. So we would find when we receive referrals and we hear things like, oh, the child says that my mom doesn't love me, she doesn't care about me, she doesn't spend any time with me, she's always shouting at me. The first thing I ask is, I don't want to blame that parent. I want to find out how they were parented themselves. What was their experiencing of being parented by their own parents? What do they think is okay?
Finding the foundation cause.
The foundation, it's always the tip of the iceberg that people see at school. The child is acting out, the child is doing this, they've learned it from home. But whereas the person at home learned it from, sometimes as well, they're very fluid. One day they're happy, mental health, the next day they're not happy, and they can't really tell you why they're so up and down in terms of their emotions. Mommy, I think somebody put in there about, fear, hopelessness, shame, guilt. Oftentimes it would go into their mental health, into like when they're young adults and into adult relationships. They can't have, so for children who have been abused sexually, they can't have healthy sexual relationships. So those are
either they're overboard or they're terrible at it.
So it's like, and then you see like risk-taking behavior. So they start taking substances to mask, because they haven't dealt with those childhood
the main problem.
So they just keep masking it. They use something today, they get into one relationship tomorrow, they get into something else. It's not stable life. post-traumatic stress, sometimes suicidal ideation. They say they want to kill themselves. Life is not worth living. But even when you explore it with them, they can't tell you, like Kudra said, they can't tell you exactly what the problem is, but they know there's something wrong. But it takes a while. It takes getting to know them, building a relationship, and helping them work it out. What we often do is a timeline event. Tell me about what happened from age 0 to age 5. Show me pictures. Who was there caring for you? And then you explore that, but obviously in a safe environment.
Mhm.
And then you explore the next bit and then the next bit. And somehow along that timeline, you find out, this is the point where things changed for you. Tell me about what happened at that time. And then you're able to narrow it down for them. But yeah,
As parents that we're not professional to go
Mm.
through the stages, bringing it down to parents level, what can a parent do? Or no, we were actually talking about parent, is ended up back into that. So we see an adult, maybe husband or wife, showing traits of being traumatized, and you can tell maybe while you're courting, they've told you stories about their childhood. For instance, maybe the woman never really stayed with the dad. All his life he stayed with the mom or with the grandma, and there was no attachment between the child, the wife, and the parent, and then this woman gets married, and then you see her struggling or doing certain things, and then the husband is like, why are you being silly? Why are you like this? Why are you like that? And he doesn't understand where this woman is coming from. So at some point, maybe now realizes, oh, okay, she did say she did have this, she had this. Maybe that's why she's behaving like that. So how do we step in to help in such relationships?
Does Kudra want to go? Or anyone can go. There are many of us here.
Sorry. Sorry, I was using my daughter's tablet and it locked. We had like an automatic thing and it locked off.
Oh,
like,
sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll take that and give you a moment. So you talked about relationships. I suppose well, you said that they've been honest. It's good if you start from that point. At least you've told the husband or the wife they've told each other what they've been through. But imagine for couples who haven't had that conversation, and you just notice that this woman, it might just be a particular thing, like for example, touching them a certain way or saying, it might be a word, even for some children or for some adults.
Something that triggers
Just one
them.
word. Yeah. So that then takes them back to where they were as a
Memory
child,
lane.
and it doesn't work from that point. So there are people who can talk about it and sort of reach out in terms of, let's open it up. What happened? Tell me about what happened. What can we do together? How did that make you feel? What do you wish would have been different for you?
Mhm.
So that in doing that, they recognize that actually what happened to me then was not normal. It did happen to me, acknowledging it. And this is now, I've got support now to talk about it and to acknowledge that it's not okay that that happened to me. But this is what it should have been like. This is the childhood that I should have experienced. And also that there's so much support out there. There's so much. There's charities, there's opportunities for you to be able to reach out and to get professional support, and that it's okay to go and talk about it, because you're talking to a counselor, a mental health practitioner, even through work these days. If you're in a union, most of the time there is support available over the phone. You don't need to meet the person. You tell them, this is what I've been through, or this is what I'm going through, and this is how it makes me feel. And it's just about having those conversations and unpicking it. And most of the time people can usually come out and say, actually, that's where I was. This is where I'd like to get to. And they give you practical steps,
I'm
to
going to
get you
ask
to
a
that point.
difficult question, and I'm throwing it to everyone, actually. Anyone can come into this. Now, we have this scenario, the man or the woman notices, oh, there's something wrong somewhere. Probably the other party is a little bit exposed to knowing things like that, and they want to help, and then the other party is not open, doesn't even want to hear it. And by the time you even say anything, there's defenses, there's walls that's been brought up. I mean, you can't force an adult to do what they don't want to do. How do we cope in such relationship or in situations like that? You can't walk out of your marriage. You're trying to make things work, but yet you're hitting a brick wall. How do we go around it?
The thing is, I think my this is my personal individual opinion.
Mm.
I think we have to be true to ourselves. If it's something, in as much as you might love that person, you might want to be there for that person. If that situation is not right for you, you shouldn't have to force yourself to be in a situation, because then that might be traumatic for you just because you're trying to help someone else out. So sometimes you need to look after yourself to be able to help someone else. That's the first thing. You can't help someone else at your own detriment at some point. So I think that's something else. There's a lot of stigma about divorce or living marriages and stuff, which that's a whole different topic. But I feel like if it's not right for you, then you need to make a decision, regardless of the comeback, the decision that is right for you. You can't help someone that doesn't want to help, but at the same time, you can't let that person drag you down, especially if you have kids involved. And you definitely know that at least if you're going to be the safer parents, to be okay, to be mentally okay, to be there for the kids, then I think that's more priority than both of you going down together. That's just my personal opinion.
Thank you very much. Anybody else wants to comment on that?
I think also it can often be difficult for people who have experienced trauma to just open up and accept the support. But oftentimes, even when you meet children, they don't want to talk to you. They just completely shut down. And it takes a while to build that relationship with them, that trusting relationship with them. And when they get to the point where they're able to open up to you and tell you about it, you as a practitioner and a professional need to make sure that it's a safe enough space for them to do that. And it's also that, like Kudra said, you're not doing that and then leaving them re-traumatized. There's re-traumatization. So you open up that kind of worms. You haven't given them any tools to support themselves. So it's almost as though you've taken them back years and left them worse off.
Oh, wow.
So they definitely wouldn't want to talk about it then.
Ever again, yes.
Yeah. So it's important that even if it's a partner, you just look, if ever you want to talk about this, I'm here to support you. But the point that Kudi's saying is, if it then gets to a point where, do you know what, this is now having an impact, not just on you, it's having an impact on our marriage, it's having an impact on our children. You have to be the protective parent to say, look, we're not doing this vicious cycle with our children. You need to get help. You need to get support. Yeah.
I think sometimes those are one of the things we call tough love. Being able to stand on your feet and like, I love you so much that I have to leave you. I love you so much that I have to take a break, step back. And if you love me, love the children, or love yourself so much, then you go for help. And whenever you're ready, I am here available.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because there's something called being empathic. As beautiful as it sounds and it is to be empathic, it's also a dangerous stage to be. When I am very empathic, so I can talk about it. And you being empathy, being understanding, and to do that, you have to come to the person's level. If somebody is feeling suicidal, you end up feeling suicidal as well, to be able to understand where they are at, what they are feeling, what could be going on in their mind, then you can reason with them. But the danger is, if you stay down there too long with them, you also can get trapped. And I believe that's where you ladies are coming from. You also can get soaked in that pain, that emotional trauma and all that. So as empathic, as good as it is, one also needs to be able to create a balance, know when to snap out of it and say, listen, we both cannot stay down there.
Yeah.
Right. I'm down there to understand you. Okay, now I get it, but we need to get out. So if the other party is not ready to get out, you need to get out of there and be the more mature person to be able to take some tough decisions. Because at the end of the day, like you said, it's going to end up being a cycle. And then you're going to have more traumatized generation. But at the end of the day, what are we trying to achieve? We want to change the narratives. We want to change the norms for what it used to be. My father beat my mom stabbed somebody, or my mom has been unfaithful. My mom is always shouting threats at us. We don't want that to repeat and repeat and repeat. And then our spiritualists will call it odiogun delay. It becomes a spiritual thing, but it's actually not spiritual. It's a mental thing. A lot of mental issues are called spiritual, which is not so. Okay, I'm going to try and see if I can read some comments, and then we'll come back. But before, let me read the next question I'm going to be asking. So while you're meditating on that, I can quickly read some comments, and then the question disappeared. Nice one. Oh boy. Talking about trauma, we have children that are traumatized, we have adults that are traumatized. We've talked about helping the children as parents. We've talked about getting help for them. Sometimes even the child might like, Mom, I'm okay, I'm dealing with it, I can deal with it, I don't want to talk to anybody. But we can't give up at that stage.
No.
You have to keep like giving the room to talk. Maybe when you take them out for burger, for a swim, or anything, activities, you people do together that would make them to open up. And then you'll be like, oh, we talked about it the other day. I'm still available if you want to talk. I could still get the help if you're ready. But we don't give up. We have to keep on and on and on. And then we also try and make inquiries, do researches, educate ourselves, develop ourselves so that we can help our children more. Now, the next question is this. What could be a trigger for a child, and what could be a trigger even for adults? Let's talk about that, then I'll read the comments. Triggers.
There's a really nice comment that I think sums it up really well from I know his mommy, El Bethel Prayer Tabernacle. Unfortunately, traumatic experiences leave a legacy of reminders that may persist for years. So trauma can last years. That's essentially what she's saying. These reminders are linked to aspects of traumatic experiences, the circumstances and aftermath. And she said here, this is where I'm going. Children may be reminded by persons, places, things, situations, anniversaries, or by feelings such as renewed fear or sadness. Physical reactions can also serve as reminders. So she summed it up so well. It's almost as though she knows that you're going to ask that question. So it's essentially that what can bring back that trigger for people is, say, certain dates. For some people, they'll say, oh, their mom passed away on the 28th or something, and around the 28th is always difficult for them, or certain year in a certain period that reminds them of, their loss at that point. For some people, it may be like when they're in a relationship, it's sort of like, I don't want you to touch me in this way. I don't want you to say this to me. Certain words are out of bounds and you just know you don't use it. For some people, they don't like being told what to do. So for parents that have been completely overbearing, controlling, children not having a choice, no love, neglect, when they go out and they're in the world of work and it's just a normal manager says, oh, can you do this? And they're like, no, I'm not doing that. You can't tell me what to do. It's because the manager is supposed to, direct them as to what to do, but they just can't handle the fact that they're being told what to do because all of their lives, they've had to deal with that. So it's certain things in their lives that then, but oftentimes people are just innocently going about their everyday life. But those little things, like places, if they go to, say, for example, some people don't go back to where they were, the environment that they grew up in, the area that they grew up in, they never go back home. Some people don't go to certain places, certain food. Some people, I've seen children who, they don't like it in the dark. They think that someone's going to hit them in the dark because when dad's going to beat him up, he switches off the light and then gives them a really good beating. So whatever happens, if, say, for example, the light suddenly switched off, he will go into a shock, like complete shock, like frozen completely. And, if you don't know that, and like their children at school are just messing about and it's dark, that can just take him into that place where he was years ago when his dad used to abuse him. So it's those little cues that people have to know about the people that have been through these trauma and know to avoid these things, or actually for people to have therapy to help them, channel and focus that energy differently. So if you are in the dark, remember that you're in a dark, safe space, but they need professional support to be able to do this.
very much. Anybody wants to add to that?
For adult trauma, with my experience, a lot of it comes from not liking authority at all. Like
Yeah.
Matthias said, not wanting to be told no, not wanting to be told what to do, how to do it. The point from what I've found is, it's not that they're not going to do it. They just don't want you to tell them when to do it or how to go about it. A lot of people suffer with this sort of, I need to be in control of my life. So even to the detriment of something bad might happen just because you, like, if you tell them to do something, they just don't do it, even though if they know that is right, just because you told them not to do it, they're gonna do opposite. And a lot of people suffer from, I don't even know, like whatever repercussion will come from it. And you have a lot of people like this within the criminal justice system, unfortunately, as you said, people that their parents told them, no, don't do this. I never really explained to them why you shouldn't do this. So they are grown adult now, just because they're 18 or above, they just want to make decisions regardless of the detriment that comes with it. They're willing to take the repercussion as far as they make that decision. And there's a bit of trauma. There's a bit of how trauma is presenting itself in a weird way that they don't really understand. For example, I'll give a blank example. I have someone that a mixed race sort of person that apparently their mom said certain thing about them being too dark when they came out. Yes. And because of the impact, and this person never recognized, like, this person never recognizes the impact that statement has on them, to the point that it comes out in a bit of racist towards every other white person that they see. But they care about their mom and they love their mom, but every other white person that they see, they take the anger out on them. And it's quite funny because the main person that that caused this trauma to them, they're not taking out anger on them. And so how do you unpack that sort of situation? How do you, it's very complex, and the impact is had in every decision they've made in life and things like that. How do you support them? How do you direct them to get support? And even you as a person, even though I don't have a mental health sort of training, as a third person within that situation, I could see like, this is a bit fishy, but how do you let that person know that I think this is possibly the cause of your trauma that's led you to where you are today? And unfortunately, the main person that caused the trauma to them is the one person they really want to love, and they want the person to love them back. So it's very complex. It's not just a easy abusive relationship, or it's the impact of words, it's the impact of little things that happen and how it can impact a whole life. Like the person is almost in their 30s and it's still impacting them till now.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Wow, it's a lot. Like I said, if we want to talk about trauma, we can do this for the next 3 months. But the whole idea is, if we are open-minded and willing, we'll be able to pick a bit of information from these, and we can actually go on Google, learn more about it ourselves. Lots of information, it's out there. It's there. You don't have to pay for it. You can educate yourself and re-educate yourself, and you can help yourself and help your spouse and help your children. So from this discussion, I'm sure few of us will be like, okay, maybe that's why my wife was doing that, or maybe that's why my son is doing that, and then we'll look into it. Don't push anything away like, I beg, I can't be bothered. No, be bothered. Be really bothered and look into it, and don't give up. Don't give up on yourself as well. Everybody's been through things, differently. I've got my own share of traumatic experiences, even though I have my own mechanism of coping. Some people may not be able to. I am one person that I easily like, okay, it's happened. Come on, let's go. What is the next thing to do? I don't dwell on it. Now, even though I try to protect myself or that from happening again. Now, it's everybody that can walk around things like that. So we need to know who is around us, who we're dealing with. And also, I am begging everybody, and then let us share the good news. If we notice things around us, let us be a community family to each other. As nicely as we can say it, or probably, for instance, there's this saying that if you have a friend or somebody that smells, instead of saying, didn't you have a shower? You just buy them a pack of perfume. Do you understand? You haven't said anything, but you have said a lot by buying them that gift. So in one way or the other, in love, let us help one another. And from the stories your husband have told you, from the stories your wife have told you, let us understand where they are coming from. Just like Sister Turaya has been saying all day, that, they have to look at why is the child doing what they are doing, and who is the child's parent, and the child's parent, where are they coming from? So understand why your husband is the way he is, why your wife is the way she is, and then what also are you also spreading or teaching your children. Now, let me go into being attachment. Let's talk about attachment a little bit. The importance of attachment, from a baby or from a little child, because I believe the major problem here is attachment, and then it spreads and spreads and spreads. Let's talk quickly about attachment, please. Anyone at all?
Does anybody want to take it? We've talked a lot. I don't like hearing my own voice.
Come on, Ekundayo.
What would I say about attachment? Obviously, as you said, the impact of a mother's relationship, sort of attachment to a child matters. The impact of the father's relationship, the growing up friendship they have within their siblings, that they have in school, family members, a whole plays an impact when they grow up on how they deal with other people, how they regulate their emotion, how they take other people's emotion, and being emotionally intelligent. So for example, the example I gave about something as easy from what the mother said, regardless of everything else they did, the impact that sort of attachment has, where that person is still looking for that person for solution while they're willing to hurt every other person that looks similar to their mom. So it's quite powerful for how little things between a child and a mom, how impactful it can be. So it's just there are various type of attachment. There are people that goes into relationship for sort of like, how should I say, I would take a bit for the narcissistic behavior where someone doesn't really care about you, but they just want to be in a relationship. They want to have control over you. They want you to depend on them. And even though they know that I don't really care about the person, they want you there, especially when they know that you're about to go, they want to be able to get you back that way, just because that's what makes them feel better. Not
that's
the fact
their
that
own security.
Just that they have the power over you is their own security, not because they're with you. It's important for a lot of young girls, a lot of guys to understand when this sort of attachment, this unsafe sort of attachment is attached to them. They need to be able to know how to get out of it. But this obviously comes with relationship. A lot of it comes with relationship with our parents. It plays a big impact on us as adults, a very, very, very big impact. And I don't think people understand how impactful it is on people.
Thank you very much. Sister Turaya?
So there's a research by someone called Bowlby. I might be wrong, but I think I'm right.
Yeah, you're right.
And there's different attachment styles in childhood. So like when we assess children and families, we sort of would say this is the attachment style that the parent and the child has been observed, or the interaction between the parent and the child. Secure attachment, avoidant, anxious, disorganized. A secure child who has a secure attachment style with the parent will say, for example, the most basic example is your child is a baby, old enough, like a toddler, sees you walking out of the room, looks back and thinks, oh, my mom's walking out, but I'm pretty sure that she will come back in. Or if I call out to her, she will come back. That child
Because
is
he has tried that
They've
before.
tried it before and knows that
And
it's
there's a
worked.
trust that's been built between
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there are other attachment styles where, you know, the child is always anxious, always looking out for mommy. Is mommy there? Is mommy there? Is mommy there? I hope she's still
such
there.
a child is not secured.
That child's not secured, very anxious. There are children also who completely disorganized with their parents, the sort of relationship, they're fearful, avoidant. They don't care if the parent is there or not. It doesn't really matter because today the
So at
parents
such
have
a young
become-
age, they've already given up already.
Yeah, but
Oh,
it's
wow.
things like, you know, for parents like that would be parents that experience like crisis in their mental health. So when they're totally fine, they're on their medication, they're doing well, receiving therapy, very, you know, organized, they respond to their children's needs. And then the next time when they're in crisis, everything goes sort of pear-shaped and then they don't. So it's a little bit disorganized, the attachment style that they have with their child or that the child has with their caregivers. And they're people that completely avoid. Because I know when I reach out to you, you don't respond to me, I'm just going to completely ignore. Those are the children that sometimes when we go, so you sometimes go at home, or you go and see them at school, they try and watch out for what they're doing. You see, when I turn up to pick up my child, is that child running up to mommy? Or is it like, oh, mommy's there, I better... Doesn't really care, completely avoid like any sort of intimate interaction. Is it looking forward to giving mom a kiss, a hug? You don't see them interacting in that way. For older children, there's no banter, there's no questioning, there's no bargaining. And then you sort of pick up on that. But then, like Kudi said, I think a really important point is those children, or sometimes those young people will go into adulthood looking to do to other people in their relationship. So they're children who, for example, I have a friend, for example, didn't grow up in a very small, close-knit family, but didn't have extended family, always wanted extended family, reached out to them, didn't have that love given back. And now, married in their own home and everything, she doesn't want extended family. And it's sort of
Never
like...
had one.
Never had one. And people don't understand that. It's sort of like, well, what's wrong with you? You're not just married to my son and this. No, I never had that. I don't need you. So they go.
It's accepted that, okay, I can survive without my extended family.
Yeah.
Then I can just continue like that.
Yeah. So they completely avoid that. And then there's issues in the home. There's issues in the marriage. There's issues in relationships. Or they don't make best friends. They go into work. There's nobody they're close to. They are home, in church.
Just do your work and go home. End of.
I don't want a conversation. I want to do my job. I want to go back. So they're completely excluded from their community, from any support network. And oftentimes, then when trouble comes, there's nobody to rely on. And then, you know, but then coercive control. Yeah, coercive control as well. You have partners who, like Kudi said, precisely so. You know, people who they're just in that relationship just to do unto other people what's been done to them. So they're repeating that cycle of abuse.
And then the funniest thing is, they are not even doing it intentionally.
Yeah.
They just believe it's the thing, it's the right thing. And sometimes you see a lot of adults behave like they are still 9, 15, 20. It depends on when they had those traumatic experiences. And you see them, they're still living in that age. They've not come out of that age. And you'll be like, is this man really 40 years old? Why is he behaving like a teenager? You know, but then if you are able to understand where they are coming from, then you'll be more empathetic, and then you begin to look for ways. How can I help? How can I re-educate? That's the main purpose of this talk. You know,
I think. Sorry, I was going to say. I'll generalize again. A lot of African families, I think, with our kids or the previous kids or our generation sort of thing, is a lot of kids did not really live their life. They lived according to how their parents want them to live. So they did everything like, oh, I'm meant to do this. My mom expects me to do this. My dad expects me to do this. So now that they're adults is when they're having the opportunity to live how they want.
Their life.
Things they missed out on when they were younger, now they want to do it. Obviously, they're not in the age to be doing it, but this is when their life is theirs to do, unfortunately. Yeah. So that's when you see a lot of grown people acting like kids, wanting to experience things that they missed out on because they didn't really live their life according to how they were meant to live it.
That's
Okay.
that reminds me of a movie where an adult, I think he should be around late, no, about 53, 54, who goes to see what are they called now? Maybe a stripper or something like that.
Yeah.
And the only thing he goes there for, he doesn't go there for sex. He goes there to be treated like a baby. He puts on Pampers and get a feeding bottle, and then he has a cage they built for him, and he just stays there. And then the woman comes and then he's latching on the woman like a baby will latch on the mother. And that's what he does for maybe like 1 hour. He pays the lady and then he goes. Now, imagine that. I just remember this movie right now when we're talking. You know, we see a lot of things in life, but when you get education and get information like this, then you can put them in pictures, put these things in pictures. So, you know, is this man sick? Is a man? Yeah, it is a mental sickness.
Yeah.
But then it's a lack in their life.
Yeah.
He never had that, and he's craving it. And he knows at his age, he can't bring that in the public.
Yeah.
He does it in the secret, you know.
Yeah.
So whatever kind of people we come across in our life, this is my message. Don't judge. Don't judge your wife. Don't judge your husband. Don't judge anyone. You don't know their story. You don't know where they're coming from. So you have no right to judge them. But rather find out how you can help them. And the only way you can help them if you have information. If you don't have any information about them, you can't help them. And when you have the information, don't use the information as a weapon to fight them, to ridicule them, or to make them be traumatized times 10. I use the information to help. Okay, let's talk about it. I know you talked about this at some certain time. How can I help? And if they tell you the only way you can help me is just give me a hug 5 minutes every day, don't say like that. You are ridiculous. What's that? That's what they want. It may be ridiculous to you, but that's what they want. They just want a hug. Give them that 5 minutes every day, and you can't imagine how much healing that will give them. You know. And then we talk about attachment. Now we can give so many other examples. I also realized something couple of years back, because the way I came into the country, you know, my husband, I'm coming, keep going, I'm coming, and I ended up being a single parent while waiting for my husband. And so many times I had to leave my child with the minder. And then I realized that attachment was affected because it wasn't with me. Do you understand? So sometimes it's not that you intentionally avoid the attachment or you don't want to, but circumstances bring about that. But the moment you realize that, don't say, okay, it's too late. Nothing is too late. Work on it. You know, the gap is there. The vacuum is there. But you can still fill it with a lot of love, with a lot of patience. You know, like the example was, you know, Ekundayo gave the example that even though the mother said a hurtful word, but they still loved their mother, and they can't hurt their mom. Because even though she said what she said, she was still showing love. She was still caring for them. She was still being a good mother to them. Even though she has created a vacuum, but she was still doing so much that I love my mom. So no matter the detachment you may have with your children, it's never too late. It's better late than never. I'll use that word. And then that brings me to the last one. Do I jump you? Do I bring the last one? Okay. That brings me to emotional connection between couples. And sometimes I think trauma also brings that. I don't know if you agree with me. When they don't have any connection with their parents, then to be emotionally connected to their own children or to their own spouse is a problem.
Yes, I think that's true. During the dating phase, and so it's different. Like when certain things happen, you go your separate ways, you go to your house, you de-escalate however you de-escalate, you come back together, you're happy, but when you're living together as a couple, it's different. Things needs to be sorted together, or find a way to resolve it amicably. So it's more complicated, and it's more, how should I say, it's more intense in the oh
I understand.
little things have a big impact. So for example, like a husband that will usually if you have an argument or while you're dating, that will walk away and stuff like that. When you're married, that can't keep happening. At some point you have to sit down to have conversations, and if you don't know how to
Manage that.
manage that or be done respectfully, obviously the other person is going to disconnect from you in certain ways. And we need to start finding a safe way to have these conversations, as you said, or certain things that you've said during the arguments are not weaponized against you. And obviously then you're not going to feel like that person is safe for you to have that conversation with.
Yeah.
So next time you're then conscious of what you say. You're conscious, even in your free time when you're not having an argument, you're conscious of what you say, if it's going to be weaponized against you next time. So, and that will keep making the gap between you bigger and bigger and bigger until there's nothing to connect to anymore.
That's a big one. It's been a quiet house. Everybody's just been listening. I asked this last one. How also, I mean, we have a duty of care, not just to our family, but also to our community. So even though we're not trying to destroy anybody's family or anybody's home or anybody's future generation and all that, but how do we step in or help, or what do we do when we see a lack of duty of care around us, maybe in the church, in the community? How do we step in to help?
We're big on this, aren't we, Kudrat? We keep talking about it. I think this is an area where we want to work on. If anybody wants to do this, please reach out to us or reach out to our coach, and she'll link you up with us. I think it's little steps, baby steps. So I'll give you a very simple example. I noticed that there's this auntie that is always struggling. She's always upset. Every Sunday we come to church, something always happens. You can guarantee it'll be her having a conversation or an argument with somebody else. And everyone's noticed is always her. But then everyone's made a judgment. I think you said it a few minutes ago that, be careful about making judgments about other people. I always look out for people like that and say, I want to get to know that person. I want to get to know what's going on with them. It might be something as simple as, sis, I need your help. Let's just, make an excuse, get them on their own. Invite them. I don't go out. Invite them for a meal, invite them for a coffee, or, sis, let's go and help here somewhere. Start a conversation, build a friendship. Talk to them generally about general things, get to know them gradually. They can see you're making an effort. They might push you away every now and again, but I can guarantee you with those baby steps, little steps, knowing that, oh, she doesn't behave to me like everybody else behaves to me. She seemed to be different. They might say to you, why are you being nice to
They
me?
might even try boundaries to push you and see if you're going to join the battle.
But you can see it. If you look out for somebody in this group and somebody else does it for somebody else, I can tell you between a few minutes we all would have looked after each other in one way or the other. If each one of us in our little community, in our little groups, looks out, even if it's a neighbor, that neighbor across the road, she never says hi to the other neighbors, make an effort. Christmas Day, go and hand her a card. Oh, hello, how are you doing? You're not being nosy, you're just saying hi. And she knows if ever she needs to talk to somebody. There are many, many referrals that come through from a neighbor, even from somebody in Tesco. Oh, I speak to this lady. I haven't seen her for a while. The last time I saw her, she had a black eye. I think she lives down the road, 4 doors down. And when you get there, something's happened to her. I'm not saying go and report your neighbors or report everybody that comes into the shop, but be that eyes, be that person that's there. Don't be judgmental, like you said. Look out for other people, speak to them. In school, a school is a really good community. When you drop off your children at school, especially when they're at a young age, look out for people, speak to people. Look at that parent who never says hi to anyone. And just say hi every day, every now and again. Say hi, invite them to things. They might not come to it, but if ever they need help, they know there's that person that always says hi to me. They'll come and reach out for support. Yeah, and our churches and our mosques and places like that need to do more. I don't think we're doing enough.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, love, you want to say something?
No, I was just gonna say, apart from like all charities and all these organizations doing things, it's about just making it safe within our communities, our little peers, our circles, friendship. There's a lot of friends that don't know what their friends are going through
Mm.
just because they don't feel safe
Yep.
in that community. It's just having conversations to make the other person feel safe enough to come to you, as Matraya said, when there's an issue, know that you won't judge them.
Mm.
Whatever they've done, it's not about you judging them, saying, "Oh, but what you did is wrong." No, it's not about that. It's just how do I support you from now on?
I think, I don't know if it was
Mm.
Pastor Stephen that gave this example once, or was it Big Chief, that there's this group of friends, they go for drink every now and then, and the man was going through a lot of challenges in his home, and he never said anything to his friends. Even they go, they do banter, and they all, but he was going through so much. I think I can't remember the story very well, but I think until one day they didn't see him for first time, second time, they were calling him, he didn't pick the phone, and they had to go to his house, and what they discovered was a bombshell. So you can be laughing with people, you can be sharing a drink together, and you may not even know they're going through hell.
Yeah.
People also have ways of masking things, but then, so you can't kill yourself anyway, and you are not a witch that will be able to read everybody's mind. But then let them know you are available.
Yeah.
If any at all, and how would they know? From the little conversations you people have.
Yeah.
If they know you're always judgmental about everything, they know, if I go and tell this one what I'm going through is going to judge me, they won't talk to you. Or if you know that you don't take anything serious.
Yeah.
Somebody tells you now, look at that sister, I think she's on. I beg, leave her. What is your business? If you want for making, I'm like, okay, I won't come to you. Because I will be telling you the pain I'm going through, and you're just going to be laughing about it. But let us make ourselves available, even for our friends and family. It's easy to, why did you do that? How can you do that? Have you actually really listened to why, the reason behind it? And if you really hear the reasons behind it, it will be a shocker. You're like, I didn't know this is what you were going through. Why didn't you tell us now? Yeah. Why would I come and tell you when I know you're going to judge me anyway? Let us really, really have a listening here. Wow, that's a beautiful one tonight. For the next 2 minutes, anybody out from the group, anyone apart from Sister Turayo and Ekundayo, who's been speaking for over 1 hour, and they've done really, 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 really well. Anybody wants to add, wants to remove, or any question for the next 2 minutes? Pastor Stephen, Big Chief, Brother Olawale, Brother Mike, Mommy Elbertel has been typing all day. God bless you, ma. God bless you, ma. I don't know if it's Oluboye Oyelaki. Thank you for joining, sir. Obina. Anybody, any contribution at all?
Hey, good evening. Good evening, everybody.
Sir.
Good evening, Moturayo, Kudra. My God, have mercy. God bless you real good.
Amen.
So proud of you, lovely ladies, man. Y'all killed it, man. Seriously, you really unpacked this thing called trauma. I'm so proud of you. I wish my wife had been on, because you mentioned her area of discipline there in terms of Bowlby, because she's an attachment therapist herself.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
you and everything you said there is spot on. I've lived with my wife for 31 years, so I know a little bit about it. So that whole
it's rubbed on you.
Thing. It has to. It has to. And for those of us that are men that are on this forum, I think what the lovely ladies and our lovely hosts have been talking about are things that are very, very pertinent to why our society is the way that it is right now. Because a lot of us, especially as men, mine is always I'm talking about fathering right now. We are all products of what we have seen. But are we going to forever dwell in that? If we continue to dwell in that, we're not going to change the narrative. We have to look at things from a different perspective. And everything these ladies have spoken about is real. We cannot continue to do the things that we've done in the past and expect a different outcome. We
Yeah.
can't. And it doesn't matter what part of the world you live in. The world has become a small community. So if you're doing it in Africa, if you're doing it in America, you're doing it in Asia, everybody is bouncing off everybody else. You know, the University of Google, it gives answers. People are going here, there, and everywhere. And we just have to begin to really do an introspective search of ourselves and, you know, go by the biblical standard again. Look after yourself. Love your neighbor as you love yourself.
That's right.
If you can't love your neighbor if you don't love yourself. So everything these ladies are talking about, look at where you're at and question yourself as per why you're where you are and seek help. As they both said, there is help. We, as men, as parents, grandparents, we need to swallow this thing called pride and just go looking for, you know, Rayo, Kudra, all professionals. Again, I say I'm so proud of the work that you ladies are doing, and it's clear that you know what you're talking about. So I'll encourage people, seek their help, seek their advice, because they know a thing or two. And you know, what's the worst that can happen? You will get help. Bless you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Pastor. Thanks for your
Thank you.
encouragement. God bless you.
Brilliant.
Anybody else? 1 minute. I like to give people room if they want to speak. Anybody else? Go in.
Good evening, guys.
Good evening, sir.
It's Big Chief here. Okay. I've tried to listen to catch up because I was running around with my kids. I have children too. I've noticed you guys have been saying something about children, trauma, if the child doesn't want to do it, how the child feels, and stuff like that. I'm not a professional, but I think parents are in their space as parents for a reason. My children don't want to wake up and go to school in the morning sometimes. Do I tell them to stay at home?
Of course not.
Now, when you keep saying parents this, you're tying the hands of the parents and you produce, I don't want to call, what best should I say? You produce children that you will not understand. It is happening now under our nose. If we don't want to be parents, we should not be parents. And if you're a parent, it comes with certain responsibilities. Parents are not always right.
Yeah.
You understand? But they have to know how to guide these children till they get to a place where they're responsible by themselves. You cannot leave children and say because they are traumatic or they are dancing. Now, my friend told me yesterday that, you know, some people F are blind and they F at everything they say. They have a name for it now. So they say, let's call it Weetabix. It has Weetabix syndrome. So your child can be swearing like that and you won't do anything. Come on, man. Don't tie the hands of the parents. You have terrible generation coming. It's happening in our eyes. We should not be over-civilized, quote and unquote, and forget what is happening. For thousands of years, not 10 years, thousands of years, they watch only two things in children. For the girls, do not be promiscuous. For the boys, don't steal. For over 6,000 years. Are all these people mad at the same time? Your parents will see that if you go at this step, the 10th step is this problem you get into. Are you telling them you're traumatized? And we don't have equal opportunities when we grow up to be adults. What do we do in such cases? Do we keep quiet and watch the children evaporate? I'm just asking.
Thank you very much, Dickie. Thank you for that other angle of looking at things. Any of the ladies want to chip in on that? For 2 seconds.
I'll let Motrayo take the lead on this.
All right.
I think we're not saying, because obviously I'm African, I'm Nigerian, and I think the Bible talks about spare the rod, spoil the child, but I'm not talking about like physical rod to a child. I would never say that. But I think my translation or understanding of that is there has to be some form of discipline.
Boundaries.
And boundaries in place between the parent and the child. For example, there are different ways of disciplining children. You know, we often come across children who the first thing that the parent does is, I'm going to hit you, I'm going to take an implement, I'm going to hit you. And that's the only language the child understands, because that's what the parent has always done. You know, and you often will hear that, you know, parents will say, that was done to me and I came out fine. Why can't I do that to my child? But you can't, because you know you didn't like it when it was done to you. But there are other things that we can do with our, we're not saying, because if you say you're not going to put any boundaries in place for your children, then they become, there's no law, there's no boundaries, they do whatever they want, they leave home. Even when they're going into like young adults, you tell them, come back at 8 o'clock. They don't care, they come back at 11 o'clock. You don't want to raise children like that. But with the relationship that we have with our children, because of the respect that they have for us, and knowing that my parents go out, they provide for me, they do everything that they can for me. This is what I want to do also. I want to make sure that I'm studying, I'm meeting the targets at school, because you can influence them in that way, because you have that relationship with them. And there are parents as well where, like, for example, myself, I use myself as an example. I grew up with the same thing. So I'm doing the same thing with my children. My nan and my mom only had to look at you and you got the message. Where in the UK, I only have to look at my children and they understand what I'm saying without me even saying anything. That means fix up. You better sort it out. And it's not to say that there's that fear factor in them, not because I'm going to hit them, but because they know there is boundaries in place. All of those things that you enjoy, I'm taking it away from you. You're asking me to take you this space. It's not happening. There are things I can take away from my children that really matters to them, that would hurt them much more than even hitting them or being verbally abusive. So discipline is really important. Someone's just put it in there. Just disciplining your children, but also go on.
From my point of view, from my work sort of thing that I'll bring to this, I work within the criminal justice system again. I've met so many specific Nigerian kids that came from a very strict family are in prison. When you sit with them, they'll tell you how strict their mom was, how if they do anything wrong, their mom will do this, their dad will do this, but they're within the criminal justice system. Just because sometimes that sort of discipline that you're talking about might not work, because every child is different. What works for each child is different. Some child is just about saying, I'm disappointed in you or whatever, and they will fix up. There's so many of them that when they tell you how strict their parents were, you think, how on earth are you here?
Yeah.
But what happens with those sort of kids is they will find a way to do whatever they want to do and end up where they are now.
Yeah. And I think, let's not forget, I'm religious. I'm very religious. My religion is the center of our home. I pray with my children. I pray with them before they go to bed. We pray when we wake up in the morning. We pray when we're on our way to school. We commit everything before God. And I know that works for me. It works for us as a family. So it's important that also we pray about our own parenting. You know, whatever I'm doing, whatever input I'm putting in, Father, you know, I pray that my children will grow and be nurtured and be loved. You know, will not be unduly influenced. You know, just commit them before God. It works. It works, as well as the discipline with all of that and the love and support. It takes a village to raise a child. My parents are very much involved in the raising of my children. If they've done something, I say, Mom, can you speak to so-and-so because she did this at school today? And she's terrified, not because my mom's going to hit her, but she's like, I don't want grandma to hear that I'm not doing very well, or that I did this today.
And the only reason why she would not want grandma to hear it, because grandma's showing so much love.
So much love, yeah.
And if grandma that is so happy with me, grandma that's always there for me, I don't want to hurt grandma. I don't want grandma to stop loving me. So it's all about love.
Yeah.
Now, I know Big Chief, I know how much love and time you spend with your children, and all the motivational words. I've heard you speaking to one of your sons, and it's like you were motivating me. And it was just on football. And such a child would be like, I don't want that to stop me from football.
Yeah.
I don't want that to do this for me. So when the child goes wrong, we all go wrong, as even as adults. And this child knows, mommy loves me, daddy loves me. and they care for me, and they will do everything to make me happy. So, and they want to go over the boundaries you've given them. They will fix up. By the time you're like, why did you do this? Do you understand the impact of what you've done? Communication. Because of what you have done, this and this and this is what it can result to. And because you have done this, so that you will understand what you have done and that it is not acceptable for the next 2 days, watching TV. Now, there is an understanding of why you discipline them. Not just you're not watching TV and they're like, what did I do?
Yeah.
So you've communicated to them, they understand the reason why, and then they understand the boundaries. So they're not, for the next 2 days, I brought myself into this situation and I just have to take it. So even though they are not happy, at the same time, they're not really angry with you. So that attunement comes back. And then after the 2 days, you're like, okay, take your TV. I hope you got the message now. You understand why I did what I did. You attune back. Just like you see Yoruba adage that says, when you discipline the child with the right hand, you use the left hand to bring the child back. So the child doesn't feel pushed away. What is done is done. We've dealt with it. We've learned from it. So discipline should be about learning. It shouldn't be about punishment. So, okay, this is what you've done. For instance, if you take a phone, I bought you a phone, and then you take it and then hit it on the floor. What's going to happen? I'm not going to beat you for that. I'm going to be wasting my energy beating you. No, you're just not going to have another phone. If it's going to take me another 5 years before I buy you another phone, then so be it. Then you will understand the results of what you have done. Consequences. So we made them understand consequences of every action. And in that way, they are not only being disciplined, they are being educated. They have information. And that is what they're also going to pass to the next generation. It's not about, they're not in the prison where first the war, do this, do that, and they're just like, I don't even know what I've done. And then they feel hatred towards you. They begin to have, my mom doesn't like me, my dad hates me. That's not the message we want to send to our children. I hope that clears things up a little bit for you, Big Chief. Well, it's been a wonderful night. Big Chief, do you want to say something? We have to round up.
No, carry on. I'm enjoying the program.
Thank you very much. God bless you, sir. It's been a wonderful night. We've overspent our time as usual. God bless you all. I can't thank you enough, Muturaya and Sir Ekundayo. Hope if we call you again or you find time, before I could get these two ladies down. It was only good. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I couldn't have done this on my own. God bless you. And God continue to uphold your home. Let us always remember prayer as well. The generation we are now is very, very, very healthy. Let me not use the other word. Let us pray in whichever language or in whichever religion you believe in. I believe there's only one God. There's no two gods. So let's communicate to our God in the way we best know, in the way we understand, commit our family and the next generation, our husband, our wife, commit this ministry of reconciliation, relationship talk show. Let us commit it to God's hand. The Lord will uphold all our home and keep us. Thank you so much.
Amen.
And it's a good night from me. God bless you all. Till next week, I'm coming to another topic. God bless you. Nana.
God bless you. Bye.